stunning person. And speaking of stunning people, our third speaker is our very own Animal Liberations Regional Campaigns Manager, Lisa Ryan, who is a force of nature, and she will be presenting the latest on our Greyhound Advocacy campaign. Lisa will take us through Animal Liberations Greyhound Racing New South Wales Shameful Fail and Stop the Greyhound Death Tracks work, the swag of serious and distressing allegations levelled against the greyhound racing industry in New South Wales, with a focus on GRNSW, GAP, New South Wales, the independent regulator GWIC, and the recently announced New South Wales Inquiry. So thank you, Lisa. Over to you.
Thank you. Just going to start sharing my screen. Alex, I'll get you to let me know if people can see this, when you can see it.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Hello to everybody. Linda's been very sensible putting me on last because I normally always go over time speaking, particularly about matters that are very prominent and important to all of us. So tonight, and it's very timely, I'm going to be speaking about our Greyhound Advocacy campaign, which has sort of taken on very much a life of its own. I'm going to be splitting our campaign into two parts. So the first part is about what is going on around the world to give us all hope and optimism. And the second part of the presentation is going to be zooming in on what's happening in Australia and particularly in New South Wales. And like the other speakers, very happy to take questions either at the end of the presentation or by you emailing us. I think it's very important at the moment, particularly taking into account what's going on in New South Wales, because I know that I've felt this. I know my colleagues at Animal Lib have felt this, and I know a lot of you are probably feeling it, that we've had inquiry after inquiry after inquiry at great public expense, and most of these inquiries continue to bring up the same things over and over again. And recently, Minister for Gaming and Racing, David Harris MP, announced yet another inquiry that really isn't an inquiry. And we're all feeling frustrated and possibly even a little bit angry. I guess what I hope that everybody takes out of tonight's presentation from me on behalf of Animal Lib is that we are moving along the right path. We are making progress. And because we've got this total mayhem with Greyhound Racing New South Wales, particularly in our state of New South Wales, that we don't often get these sort of opportunities to absolutely shine the spotlight on this industry, and we just need to keep pushing forward. And when we see roadblocks like pretend inquiries, we need to keep pushing through that, and we need to remain optimistic. That's what the greyhounds need us to do. So a snapshot to hopefully give you confidence that this is very much a global movement, that what is happening across Australia and in New South Wales is happening in lots of other places in the world. And there are little steps going forward that are actually taking us down the right path. So recently in the US, there was a ban to greyhound racing in Connecticut. There was also, through legislation, the outlawing of simulcast gambling in both New Hampshire and Arizona. That's really important. This industry is sustained by its links to gambling money. And even if we have greyhound tracks with no participants there, or we'll have participants there, but we have no spectators there, it really doesn't hurt the industry because of the online gambling. So to shut this industry down, we need to not only focus on new laws to ban racing or stopping the development of new greyhound tracks. We need to choke them where it hurts most, and that is financial, and that is cutting off the online gambling. That's crucial, and that is very much a part of our campaigning at Animal Lib. In the last, on the 14th of July, the last track in Mexico was closed. So that is one less country around the world that is now running commercial greyhound races. Now, the downside to that, but there is a solution, is that there were 150 surviving greyhounds. And at the moment, there is a global effort being led by organisations like Grey2K USA and a whole lot of greyhound rescue groups in America, around Mexico, who are raising money and one by one getting those greyhounds away from the track where they were kennelled permanently and then raced, into rescue groups who are then doing the vet work and then getting those greyhounds into safe and permanent loving homes, never having to race again. The other significant things that have been happening around the world is there's been a real focus in Ireland, and in Ireland there's, from memory, 15 racing tracks, commercial racing tracks still happening. And through parliamentary questions in Ireland recently, for the first time ever, the Irish greyhound racing industry has had to answer questions, including how many greyhounds are being killed. And what this parliamentary questioning has uncovered there's been a 60% increase in greyhound deaths, either through injury or immediate death on track, or through greyhounds being removed from tracks and then killed, which is the same old story that happens in every country that is still allowing commercial greyhound racing. So because this is the first time a lot of this information has been made public, the Irish media have picked it up. And because of that, more and more people are becoming aware. So the public response to all of this is there is an increasing call in Ireland, which is still allowing gambling on animals and greyhound racing, to shut the industry down. The same pressure is absolutely prominent in our Kiwi cousins in New Zealand. So before the current government was elected, when it was sort of neck and neck about who was going to get in, the opposition at the time made a commitment that if they were elected to govern in New Zealand, they would shut down greyhound racing. So the opposition were elected, and now they're stalling. So there's been, from memory, about 4 separate inquiries in New Zealand where, 70, 80% of the New Zealand population have said shut it down. The government are still resisting. That is a reflection of the power of the lobbying and the financial might of the gambling industry. And the same thing we see reflected all around the world where greyhound racing is continuing. In Scotland, and this is one of the most exciting things, one of the Greens MPs there who has been advocating to shut down greyhound racing in Scotland has got a bill up, and that bill has taken a huge amount of work and has now achieved the support of a number of Scottish MPs, and that bill to ban greyhound racing in Scotland is actually progressing through the Scottish Parliament, and that will be happening during their summer period, and we will keep you up to date. So the image in front of you now is the Greens Party in Scotland enjoying the success that their bill was actually moving forward. And we will keep you across this, because every step along the path, whether it's in Scotland or Ireland or New Zealand or Australia, is really important. And it's important to continue to remember that we are all working from the same playbook. Now, focusing on Australia, we have had, and a lot of you will be familiar with, the various exposures of greyhound trainers and the appalling conditions greyhounds are expected to live in. There's been a number of exposures coming out of Tasmania. There's been exposures in Victoria, in New South Wales, in South Australia. There's been a number of inquiries. The most recent was in South Australia, and they held almost a mock inquiry where not a lot has changed. There is a huge push in Tasmania at the moment to overhaul the racing industry, but the animal welfare protection laws in Tasmania are probably the worst we've got in any state or territory in Australia. But what is important to keep reflecting on is that the pressure is coming from everywhere. And that is how we have looked at and rejigged our own Greyhound campaign. And part of our campaign is really close collaboration with organisations like the amazing team at the Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds. And for those of you who may not be aware, very recently they released two very, very important reports focused on New South Wales. So the first is the Lethal Tracks 2023 report on the injuries and the on-track deaths, so the greyhounds that are either killed outright or are killed by vets paid by GWIC on track, or the greyhounds that are removed and killed elsewhere, either that day, the next day, or a week later. Very, very important. Now, the Coalition have got links on their own website and their social media to this new report. It's got some really important information, and for anybody that wants to advocate for greyhounds across Australia and New South Wales, this is critical reading. If you can't find it, contact us and we will provide you with a copy. The second significant report is their Smokes and Mirrors report. Now, the Coalition have done these types of reports on a number of Australian states and territories. The one most recently released is on New South Wales, and it gives you some really fundamental information that you can use when you are lobbying for greyhounds about their claims that we hear all the time along the lines of greyhound racing is good for the economy, it's good for regional centres, it creates jobs. When you read this incredible report that the Coalition put together, you will have the information and the fact-based evidence to go back to your MPs or to go back to whoever you are trying to change their opinion or what their propaganda statement. So just wanted to flag both of those reports because they're very important, and they're certainly the information put together by the researchers and the volunteers at the Coalition we rely on very, very heavily. What we've done with Animal Lib's Greyhound campaign is we have all had a strategic look at what are we doing, what are we trying to achieve, and how do we need to keep our own campaigns fluid, timely, and relevant. So at the moment, we've been working on providing information out there in the public arena about the state of the New South Wales industry. And that has come about by our reviewing and our awareness and our responses to the current allegations and scandals that just keep coming out of greyhound racing New South Wales and just continue to fester. We are now in the early stages of moving that first chunk of our campaign into our Shut It Down campaign. And I'll talk about that a little bit further on. The next part of our campaign, which is going to be the biggest chunk of our work for the rest of this year and probably most of next year, is our Stop the Greyhound Death Tracks work, which I'll speak about a little bit further down. So predominantly because of the allegations that came out of following the sacking of the YE staff, you know, basically bedlam happened. And because the staff at YE were obviously not treated well, they started to speak, and they spoke to the media, and we just heard more and more about what had been going on behind the scenes. Now, none of this was a surprise to Animal Liberation and probably wasn't a surprise to a lot of other people. But this time we had credible whistleblowers, and like Abigail's office and probably like a lot of other offices, we've been speaking with whistleblowers as well, and we are very dependent on what they're telling us. Now, the focus also shifted to their rehoming arm, Greyhounds as Pets, which is a registered charity which has millions and millions of dollars to rehome greyhounds, and yet they continue to fail. This is not new. We at Animal Lib, we have been calling out greyhounds as pets for many, many years. They have failed for many, many years. So what has happened now is not new. The focus was very much on the YE facility, and when we were sent copies of the images of that facility, our immediate reaction was the public need to know this, and we published all of those images without hesitation. We certainly verified that they were accurate images, but we published them because we believe the public has a right to know what's going on. And of course, all of this links into, and everybody will recognise Mr. Macaulay there, the Aussie Mates in the State program. Now, like others who are advocating for what is best for greyhounds, we have been calling out this scheme from the very day it started, and going right back to Senator Maureen Faruqi's Senate inquiry into Australian greyhounds being exported, at which we participated, and we gave testimony at that public hearing. We opposed this program because it was risky and it was not safe for greyhounds. And it is not safe for greyhounds. And some of you may have seen the two recent quite distressing posts that we did, again, because we believe the public have a right to know, about two New South Wales greyhounds exported under this Aussie Mates program, and that was Jazzy, who died an agonising death, locked in a crate in a cargo hold of an aeroplane on her way to America, and died in excruciating pain. And the second dog, Kerry, who was confused coming out of a transport van, thinking it was a starter box, got out of the van and ran headfirst into a fence and broke his neck. Now, Rob Macaulay, the former, now resigned, CEO at Greyhound Racing New South Wales, said in an email to all the participants that Kerry basically died running around in a garden full of flowers. That is not the description given by the former chief vet at Greyhound Racing New South Wales, the very brave and very courageous Dr. Alex Britton. And and it was Dr. Britton's report, which was made public through the New South Wales Parliament. And again, we at Animal Liberation believed the public had a right to see that report. And when we were provided access with it, we published it. From the moment the scandals started emanating from Greyhound Racing New South Wales and GAP New South Wales, we created the page called Greyhound Racing New South Wales Shameful page, Shameful Fail. And every time Rob McCauley opened his mouth, every time Greyhound Racing New South Wales have put out a media release of colour and spin, we have responded. So for anybody that hasn't seen this web page, I would encourage you to read it, because it's basically day by day and week by week commentary. We are tracking absolutely everything they do, and we are staying on top of what they're saying, and where we believe it's smoke and mirrors, we are saying so that the public get some resemblance of truth and fact. Important to, throughout this battle, and it is a battle, to also reflect on some of the achievements we've made. And these achievements would not be possible without the amazing support we get from people not only across New South Wales, but right across Australia, and working in collaboration with groups like the Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds and people from around the world. So one of the things that not a lot of people are aware of is that the University of Technology, Sydney, used to do a whole lot of research for Greyhound Racing New South Wales about what was a safe greyhound track, what wasn't a safe greyhound track, how could they improve. Through a lot of lobbying by us at Animal Liberation and by the team at the Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds, in the end, the University of Technology called a halt to that relationship and they parted ways. So Greyhound Racing New South Wales can no longer rely on, we've got science, we've got evidence, we know how to make tracks safe. So we basically put a sledgehammer through that line of argument they've been arguing for the last couple of years. Again, through our behind-the-scenes lobbying, and it was both the Coalition and us at Animal Liberation, Qantas agreed to suspend the Qantas freight flights of New South Wales greyhounds under this Aussie Mates program. So that has ensured that Greyhound Racing New South Wales are at the moment under extreme pressure, because those greyhound numbers are just going to keep stockpiling. Very recently with Australian Community Media, and just to give everybody an understanding, Australian Community Media, or ACM, have got or have had a financial arrangement with Greyhound Racing New South Wales. So, you know, Rob McCauley and their media people used to put out a non-stop stream of media releases that were basically being reproduced and published in about 8 or 9 rural, very important media outlets across New South Wales, including, I think, the Canberra Times. And they weren't being fact-checked. So they could put out a media release and be guaranteed, because of this financial arrangement, that it would be reproduced. We drew a line in the sand, or I drew a line in the sand on behalf of Animal Liberation a few weeks back, where Rob McCauley, before he resigned, did an op-ed type article where he described us as peddlers of information, non-factual information, and liars. So I contacted Australian Community Media and ended up speaking with the appropriate person, and they agreed that what had been published was inappropriate. So they pulled Rob McCauley's article And they then gave us the option to co-author with the Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds our own op-ed piece, which we did and which we had produced and published online and in these same media outlets. So that we've been fighting ACM and these unchecked articles for a number of years. So that was a big breakthrough for us. We have had huge number of questions raised by a number of animal supporting, animal caring MPs across New South Wales. We've been drafting questions over and over and over again, not only in New South Wales, but also in our Commonwealth Parliament as well. And Abigail referred to the budget estimates. That is a period we are always very active in drafting questions, and there will be lots of Greyhound questions. We, with one of our first direct action emails, we, within a couple of weeks, generated 3,000 emails going to the New South Wales Premier and the Minister for Gaming and Racing. We've now hibernated that email and changed it over to our latest email, direct action, which is going to every single MP in New South Wales, upper house and lower house. We released that at 4 o'clock on Monday. And when we checked this morning, already 20,000 emails have been generated. So that shows you how important it is for people to be taking up our actions and the type of pressure that we are continuing to exert. Of course, we all celebrated when Rob McCauley resigned. The board is still there. We are going to continue putting pressure on the government to sack that board. We have also released 2 new e-petitions in the Legislative Assembly, the lower house, and the Legislative Council in the upper house. And I think Kara's going to put links in the chat to that. We also have, because a lot of people don't think about this, but it's really relevant at the moment, we have council elections coming up in New South Wales in a few weeks. And very recently, we put together a guide for everybody on the type of questions you can start asking candidates running in your local area. And that includes animal gambling, the use of animals for fun, for entertainment. There's lots of questions, and I would encourage you all to have a read of that and use our guide. The next, and I won't dwell on this too long because I've probably already gone way over time, but the next part of our work, and we've put enormous time into this, is going to be released in the next week, 2 weeks, and that's our Stop the Greyhound Death Tracks work. This is fundamentally critical. This is an area where our team are very experienced, and we've had some really good wins challenging industries, be it a factory farm for pigs or a puppy factory for dogs or a new greyhound racetrack. And we're going to hit this really hard, because if we can stop the cruelty and the deaths and the maiming of greyhounds before it happens, we are staying ahead of the game. So, and somebody used this expression to me the other day when I was going through our work on opposing greyhound tracks just in New South Wales. And they said, while the house is on fire, you need to keep pushing through with stopping the death tracks. And they were right. So at the moment in New South Wales, we are facing, 7, 8, 9, and it could be more new greyhound tracks or refurbished tracks. Now, we're going to be dependent on the development applications lodged by either Greyhound Racing New South Wales and whoever's running it at the time, or a greyhound club, or the trainers, owners and breeders group, which are pretty powerful in New South Wales. The ones we've been focusing on, and if you look at that screen in front of you, the Centre of Excellence ones are the big ones. So these are new greenfield sites. For example, in Tweed, the Tweed Coursing Club bought land for several $1 million. They didn't do their homework very well because that land has flooded twice since they bought it, and they just can't get the planning application up. It keeps getting pushed back by whoever is reviewing it, and Animal Lib has had a lot to do with that. We have been fighting the Tweed track proposal for 2 solid years now. We also have the Goulburn track. So there's an existing track in the Goulburn region, again, a rural area, a round track. That club want to build a second track, a straight track, because if they have a straight track, they can be seen to be doing something good for greyhounds because there is less carnage on straight tracks. But understand there is still injuries and deaths on straight tracks. They are less dangerous than circle tracks or round tracks, I agree, but greyhounds still die on them, and they're still being raced, forced to race for gambling profits. So we will always oppose them. And then we have this festering situation in the Orange area where there's been a huge squabble between Bathurst Council and Orange Council about who would get the new mega track or the Centre of Excellence. It looks like Orange Council has won. And I have to tell you, the Orange Council has been less than transparent. A lot of the meetings they've had about where they've been making decisions about this track and the land to be used, which was public land, which is now basically being sold to the greyhound racing industry, public land that could have been used for public housing or a shelter for animals or any other decent purpose, has been basically sold for a profit to the greyhound industry. And many of these decisions have been held in closed council meetings. Now, we have continued to email this council and put pressure on this council. So while all of these things are very fluid, rest assured we are across all of them and we are applying maximum pressure in the background, and not just us, but locals in those areas as well. So just to give you a little bit of confidence that we know what we're doing with fighting these tracks, and we do. And there is nothing more exciting to me than a good battle with a gambling industry or the greyhound industry or the horse racing industry. So going back 2 years ago now, Greyhound Racing New South Wales put up a multi-million-dollar proposal to build what they dubbed a rescue and rehoming centre in the Muswellbrook area. They threw millions of dollars into that development application. They had the fanciest consultants and the prettiest looking proposals, and they came up against Animal Liberation with support from the Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds and with the support of people who care about greyhounds and care about animal welfare. And we, through our submission guide, managed close on 2,000 objections. We pushed them through 2 rounds of public exhibition. And at the end, the local planning panel put forward a unanimous decision to refuse their proposal. Now, there is no way Greyhound Racing New South Wales would have thought they would have lost that development application, but they did in spectacular fashion. We were the victors, the animal lovers were victorious, and they then had to sell the land they'd bought for that. So their plans to have a centre like YE, but 4 times as big, out of sight and out of mind, we put a sledgehammer through that one as well. Then the ongoing plans that the Tweed Coursing Club have continued to put up, we have challenged them at every opportunity. And so those plans still aren't finalised. And every time they go to the state significant planning area in the New South Wales government, we are there putting in our objections. And it's now been close on 4 years since they first announced their Centre of Excellence, and they still haven't been able to get a clear run at it. And we're going to continue applying that pressure. With the Goulburn track, we managed, and we only had 3 weeks to do this. We put out a submission guide, and we had something like 3,500 people put in their own personal objections based on, our advice. And that closed off late last year, sort of close to Christmas time. And that development application is absolutely buried in assessment, and we hope to keep it that way. So with all of these ongoing issues with tracks, we are all over them. We are monitoring them frequently, and we are going to do absolutely everything in our power with your help to make sure they don't win anything and we don't see a growth in tracks. We have more tracks in Australia by 50% than anywhere else in the world. And the bulk of them, around about 27, are in New South Wales. We don't need any more tracks. We don't need any more greyhound harm or killing. What can you do to help us? Because we've got a huge amount of work just with our greyhound campaign. And as most of you would know, we're all working on a number of campaigns that are all important for many, many animals. The thing we need most of all at the moment to help us with greyhounds is volunteers. There is so much work to do, and it wouldn't matter if our small team were working 7 days a week. I'm still not going to get on top of everything we need to do. So we desperately need volunteers, and just a couple of weeks, a couple of hours every week makes a huge difference to what we can focus on. Anybody that is in a position to make a donation, and it doesn't matter how small, how big, that can help us get new corflutes done, new banners done, sponsoring some of our social media. It all makes a huge difference. Take action every time we put out an alert saying, here's a new petition, here's a new direct action where you can email every MP. Please take it up. We put a huge number of hours into designing these actions so it's easy for you. We know everybody's busy. Normally, all you need to do is fill in your name and your email address and push send, or tailor it if you want to. The pressure we're mounting on the government at the moment is significant, and we intend to keep it up, and we need your help to do that. And as I said, 20,000 emails since 4 o'clock Monday has blown us away. And we know how powerful we are together. I guess if you're in a rural area where a new greyhound track is proposed, be our eyes and ears on the ground. I can't be everywhere. Our team can't be everywhere. But if you are in one of those areas and you see something in your local paper, or you hear something at your local council, please email us or give us a call to keep us on top of what's going on, and get active. Stay connected with us, read our emails, subscribe to our emails so that you can play a part in helping us to shut this industry down. One of the events that we're very excited about, and we've already launched and we're planning, is what we want to see as the biggest and the loudest protest against the $1 million chase at Wentworth Park on the 18th of October. This is the richest greyhound race, prize money-wise, in the world. It's been going since 2018 from memory, and we have an event up. So we are encouraging absolutely everybody that cares about greyhounds, cares about dogs, cares about welfare, is fed up with a government that doesn't put its money where its mouth is, to come to this event at Glebe at Wentworth Park. We are doing a lot of behind the scenes planning. We have, I think Cara has got all the speakers up now, so we have gone very bipartisan. We have an incredible lineup of speakers, including our own Linda Stoner from Animal Liberation. We have the Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds. Excuse me. We have Abigail Boyd speaking. We have Emma Hurst speaking. We have Maureen Faruqi speaking, and we have the independent MP in New South Wales, Alex Greenwich, speaking, and we have our own Darren Brolo will be leading the chant. So if you're able to attend this event or share this event with your family and friends, we'd be very grateful. That's enough for me. And I'm sorry, Linda, I've gone over again. But happy to take any questions, or anybody to email me or email Animal Lib, and Linda will flick them to me. And please, anybody that's got, even an hour a week, we are really, really busy. And this campaign is not one that we can take our foot off the pedal. We need to keep pushing forward while we have this opportunity. But some extra hands would be very welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. As always, your presentations are so informative and inspiring, and even though we work together, I always learn more from the presentations that you do at our public webinars. You're a beautiful speaker and your knowledge is profound. I'm going to start with it's a two-part question from Neil Jones. How do we best challenge the industry's promotion and claims of straight track racing in redeveloped and new centres of excellence as their solution to deaths on tracks? If you could do that one first.
Yeah. Hello, Neil. Lovely to have you. Neil is one of our eyes and ears from the Orange region. I guess it's important to use fact-based responses, and the facts are, and the coalition can help with this response, Neil, in that there are deaths and injuries on straight tracks as well. And our response would be a single greyhound being maimed for life or being killed is one too many. That would be my response. And that forcing animals to race for gambling profits has no ethics. It's not moral, and the majority of people around the world don't want it happening.
And thanks, Lisa. And the second part of Neil's question, are there any very recent public opinion polls regarding banning greyhound racing?
There are lots around the world. There is certainly what was a very independent survey done by both Grey 2K USA and the Coalition of the Protection of Greyhounds, Neil, which gave high numbers of the number of people that want it shut down, high numbers of people who would not vote for a party that supported greyhound racing. And I will email that survey to you after the webinar. Has Linda
Thanks,
frozen?
Lisa.
No.
excuse me, and from Fee, if we see a greyhound property on our travels, should we break in and get proof?
No.
To hear the question from Fee, Lisa?
Yeah. My animal liberation can't and wouldn't support any form of trespass. If anybody witnessed or witnesses any type of animal suffering or cruelty, it is better to, one, for the animal's sake, report it to the relevant authorities, even if you don't have a lot of faith in them. But by all means, you can report it to us as well. We also have a cruelty-free hotline with a very, very experienced manager of that cruelty hotline, and all of us at Animal Liberation deal with those animal welfare authorities. So even if you put in a complaint but you don't have a lot of confidence, we can put one in as well. And sometimes the added pressure, I guess, probably not the best description, but the added pressure of a formal complaint from Animal Liberation sometimes can make them work a little bit faster.
That's for sure. And from Sharon, I've been reading online that it is impossible to adopt a greyhound in the USA, but you said there is a stockpile. Why can't people find? And then I guess the rest of the message would be, why can't they find greyhounds to adopt in the USA if there is a stockpile?
The stockpile is in kennels, so greyhounds going from New South Wales, but not just New South Wales. There is a similar sort of, send the surplus greyhounds to America scheme happening from Victoria as well, and no doubt elsewhere. Now there is reduced numbers of greyhounds in America for one specific reason, and that is because the industry has nearly all but been shut down, apart from a couple of tracks. So the greyhounds that were surplus at one time have now all been adopted, and there's not a lot of them left. And they are, most people who have interacted with greyhounds love them. They're quiet, they don't bark. They're just really, really easy to have dogs in terms of dogs. And they get their term couch potato for good reason. So there's not a lot left. And that's why the industry here thought, okay, they'd make themselves look like heroes by sending discarded greyhounds in huge numbers. In New South Wales, they've sent about roughly 850 this year alone. But a lot of the greyhounds they're sending, according to our concerns, have not been ready, have not been put through appropriate behavioural testing. And there have been stories come out where some have been adopted to people with post-traumatic stress disorder, and then the dogs went into these homes. They didn't work out because they hadn't been through the right behavioural rehabilitation, and then they got shoved back to kennels. So, they have to go into, they certainly have to go into kennels when they arrive from Australia to America. There's quarantine processes, but it's been almost like throwing the baby in the bathwater out at the same time. New South Wales greyhound racing industry and the lack of oversight by GWIC, the publicly paid regulator, and the lack of concern and care by successive ministers, not just David Harris, but Kevin Anderson before him, and the one before that, and the one before that. They've all been pretty much the same. Nobody's been watching what happens. They just want to get them out of New South Wales and out of the kennels here. So they have been stockpiling them. They're also stockpiling them here, right across New South Wales. YE is not the only setup GAP New South Wales and Greyhound Racing New South Wales has had operating. They've had numerous ones. They have been using handrod kennels as well. There are greyhounds everywhere. And because we have managed to get Qantas Freight to stop the export of these discarded greyhounds, and they are to the industry, they're rubbish. They're not making money. They're no good at racing anymore. They're no good at earning gambling dollars. They don't care what happens to them. So they're sending them over there. And what happens once they leave Australian shores, they come off the limited e-tracking that they've been doing, and we have no idea where they go. So they can go to America, but they can then be re-exported somewhere else. We have no way of monitoring what happens to those greyhounds once they leave Australian shores. So they are being stockpiled, and it will take time for some of them to go through different rescue groups and then get adopted. But the solution for these greyhounds is not shipping them overseas. The solution is putting a cap on the damn breeding here, because it is greyhound puppy farming on a mass scale. That's what we need to stop. And then we need to shut the industry down.
Thank you, Lisa. And there's a comment from Lee Erlin, which we can all absolutely relate to. Thank you so much, Lisa. You are so valued. And Fee, in response to leaping a fence to get footage of greyhounds, I expect you could probably do it legally. You could, I know it goes against the green to buy a ticket to go and see a greyhound race, but you could probably get some good footage. Also, our colleague Alex has said you can anonymously report suspected or alleged cruelty to our hotline by calling 1800 751 770. If you miss that, just go onto our website, al.org.au, and you'll find the hotline details there. Fee says, I think there has been no homes found for Australian greyhounds in the USA. Are they all in kennels? I think Lisa's pretty much followed that up. And Sharon's made a comment, if so scarce, why stop at wait lists here? Saying its demand seems weird. We were the assessment centre, I thought, so that meaning those girls didn't do their job. Anyway, not Abigail will be bringing up in estimates.
Just a comment on that. Our focus has not been the staff, the GAP staff at New South Wales. While I would, as a human being, I would say to myself, and as a former whistleblower, I would say to myself, if there were all these issues, why weren't they raised before? But I also have other knowledge, like Abigail does, where it's clear to me that a lot of these staff did raise these issues over and over again, and they were fobbed off or they were ignored. So we're not critical of the staff per se. We're critical of the system that allows dogs, companion animals, family friends to be discarded at 2 and 3 years of age because they're not fast enough, or they're not earning enough money, or they're not earning their keep. That is the system we're fighting, and we're fighting the industry. And it is certainly, based on the information I have available to me, it is very clear to me that a lot of the staff did care. It's also clear to me that a lot of the senior management didn't. So, I hope some of those very experienced staff are able to find other positions where their skills and their experience is valued. But, you know, you always get those situations. You know, we've been involved with lots of exposures of puppy factories, and sometimes you get half a dozen staff that really care about the animals and they become whistleblowers, and you get others that just don't care. It's always a mixed bag. But in general, our fight is not with the GAP staff. Our fight is with the senior management and the industry.
Thank you, Lisa. On that note, I mean, we could continue having a conversation about this for, I don't know, at least 2 more hours, but time is against us. And I just want to thank all the wonderful people who've joined us this evening, long-term, amazing, supportive people and new people, which is always exciting. And I also want to acknowledge my colleagues. We have probably the smallest team of any organization around, but the things that come out of this tiny organization through the hard work, perseverance, intelligence and research capabilities of Alex and Lisa and Cara and our colleague Barry Tapp, who runs the cruelty-free hotline in Victoria, and Kylie, who is an integral team member. I just want to commend you all. You are extraordinary people, and it's an honor to work with you all. And I hope we can look forward to seeing all of you back again, probably in October, but we'll let you all know. And I wish you a warm, snuggly evening, and I give thanks to you. I'll just finish with Susan Sorensen. Thank you to all for another informative webinar and for all that you do with so little. Oh, that's so beautiful. What a lovely way to end. So I'll say thank you and good night to everybody.
Good night. Thank you.